What's up everyone, it's Ozzy from OzTalksHW, and this video has been in the works for a while now. I teased my followers on Twitter this year, and shameless plug, follow me at OzTalksHW, where I challenged myself to build a $250 gaming computer without a pre-built and without outrageous steals. Now, considering that at the time that I tweeted this, prices for RAM and GPUs were insanely high, much higher than they are now. It seemed like a pretty impossible challenge to do. But months of troubleshooting later, and now that prices have finally come down a little bit, I can finally say that I completed the challenge. So here is the $200 gaming computer that almost anyone can build. Part 3. The series started in November of 2016 with the original $150 gaming setup that I dubbed the Ozbox, and since then I created a $200 variant about a year after, unofficially the Ozbox version 1.1 I guess, and since summer is upon us I decided to give it another shot. I suppose you can call this the Ozbox version 1.2 for now. Now, one disclaimer before I begin. In my last two Ozbox videos, I used a formula that I've discussed several times on this channel: buy a pre-built computer, upgrade the power supply, and install a dedicated video card. This is easily the most cost-effective method for getting into PC gaming at such a tight budget as $200 to $300. While I do recommend it for a budget this low, I did not use this formula in this build, and that's for two reasons. One, I've already used this formula several times before, and I'm sure you guys already know how to apply it, so I don't want to beat a dead horse any longer. And two, it's just not as fun and exciting. There are several videos of doing the same old: buy an i5 pre-build and install a dedicated video card. It gets old really quickly, and this is more exciting for you guys and for myself. And because it's a completely custom PC, there are going to be compromises that I will get into as I dive into each of the components that I chose. Now, there are two variants for this build. There is a $200 variant and a $240 variant. And the biggest difference is really, well, the only difference is really the video card, but it's big enough that I decided to mention it. And as always, if you have any local deals, anything that can save you cash or give you better performance for the same price, then use those. This is just a very cookie cutter build that I think will apply to a lot of people, even people who are not in the USA. The CPU I chose is the Xeon X3470, a 95-watt LGA 1156 CPU with 4 cores and 8 threads clocked at 2.9 base and a 3.6 single-core turbo. Older Xeons in the LGA 1156 platform are both solid performers for their age and are dirt cheap, and with games starting to utilize more than 4 cores, the extra threads can really help out. Other Xeon variants are also available from the platform, ranging from the X3430, which is a lower clocked Xeon without any hyperthreading, all the way up to the Xeon X3480, which is a Xeon that is clocked higher and also has hyperthreading. But I chose the X3470 because I think that's a happy medium between clock speed and price. I went with the Supermicro X8 SILF motherboard. It comes with the I/O shield and a CPU cooler for $33 right now. It's a solid option for a dirt cheap build like this because it supports up to 32 gigs of registered ECC memory, which is much cheaper than unbuffered RAM, and uses a standard micro ATX form factor and CPU cooler mount, something OEM and server boards usually do not have, hence why I avoided those. It does have some very obvious downfalls. It only supports PCIe 2.0 in an Express 8 lane, though that is enough bandwidth for even something like a GTX 1070. It only supports USB 2.0 and only has 2 USB 2.0 ports on the motherboard itself, and it has no audio and mic I/O ports. I picked up 4 2GB sticks of registered ECC memory, totaling 8GB for $28. 8 gigs is still enough for modern gaming, though the minimum nowadays. With registered ECC memory being so cheap, you can upgrade to 16 gigs for only $20 more, but I stuck with 8 to stay within the budget. As a forewarning, these Supermicro boards are very picky as to which memory modules that you can use with them. I went through 2 different memory module kits that were unsupported by Supermicro, and that caused errors on post. So Make sure that you use memory modules that are officially supported by Supermicro. I will have a comprehensive list in the description for you. Storage is as straightforward as usual. New 500GB hard drives are only about $20 with a 1-year warranty on eBay right now, so that's what I chose. It should hold an array of esports titles and a few larger AAA games, and you can always upgrade to a 1TB hard drive if you really wanted to, and if the budget permits. And like I mentioned earlier, the video card is really what causes the split between the $200 variant and the $240 variant. The $200 version uses a GTX 750 1GB, and the $240 version uses the GTX 750 Ti 2GB. These video cards go for $39 and $69 respectively on AliExpress, and don't worry, they're legitimate cards. The 750 performs similarly to a 1030, and the 750 Ti is about 10 to 15% faster than a 1030 on average, and also has an extra gig of VRAM over the 750. 2GB GTX 750s are available on AliExpress, but with their price being so close to the 750 Ti, you may as well spend an extra $5 to $10 and pick up the Ti version. The power supply is the trusty and very overused on this channel EVGA 450BT/BV. We're working with a 95-watt CPU and a 60-ish watt video card, so this power supply will be enough for the build even under full load. Now, the 450BT/BV has been on sale for about 2 weeks right now for about $25, but it usually goes for around $30 to $35, which is a decent price for this build, and it fits in the budget just nicely. On top of that, it also gives you some breathing room for future video card upgrades. And lastly, pick up a case that fits into your budget. I bought the Roswell FBM01 for $19 a couple months ago, and I've used it for several builds since. And while it's not the best case, it lacks proper cable management and the airflow isn't best, it definitely gets the job done, and that's all I can really ask for a case that is this cheap. So pick up like a $20 to $25 case. Most of them will work just fine for this build. Now, because of the motherboard's standard form factor, building this computer is no different than building any other computer out there. You install everything the same, and pretty much any computer building tutorial that you can find online will apply to this build right here. After you build the computer, you do need to activate the PCIe Express lane and make that your primary video output device. And to do that, you connect your monitor to your motherboard's video output and not your video card. You go into the BIOS by tapping the delete key, and I can't really remember the settings while I'm recording this, but I'll definitely have something on screen to show you how to do it. And you're going to have to change your primary video output from the iGPU to your video card / your PCIe Express lane. Once you're done with that, then you can connect your monitor back to your video card and you're good to go. Install Windows and enjoy your new computer. Both computers played eSport and AAA titles fairly well. Latter games such as Overwatch and Fortnite held very consistent and playable frames per second, and even older but still popular games such as GTA 5 did well on both systems. As you can see, the 750 Ti system pulls ahead by about 15% in most of the games played, but the 750 computer holds its own well enough to enjoy the gameplay. The only title that really struggled at 1080p was Far Cry 5, and that was with the 750. The lack of VRAM and frankly the speed of the GPU was not enough to push more than 30 FPS in the title, and even then, frame dips were not too uncommon. Nonetheless, it has solid entry-level performance for the price. To recap, for $200 to $250, you get yourself 4 cores and 8 threads at 3 GHz, 8 gigs of RAM that is expandable to 32 gigs, a GTX 750 or 750 Ti with 1 or 2 gigs of RAM, a 450 watt power supply, and a 500 GB hard drive. Not too shabby if you ask me. Downfalls include the very minimal upgrade path. You're pretty much at the end of your rope with a Xeon X3470, and unless you overclock it pretty far, it doesn't really hold a candle to modern alternatives. You also have very limited I/O capabilities, like I mentioned earlier. Only 2 USB 2.0 ports, though that can be fixed with a USB hub, and you don't have any mic or audio I/O capabilities. All of that has to be done through USB. You also lose a lot of newer features such as M.2 form factors for SSDs, the new PCIe 3.0, which I guess it's not really new, it's been out for a while, but you lose that capabilities. Just a lot of different features that newer platforms have, even older newer platforms such as LGA 1155 or 1150 have that this platform does not. And to be frank, this computer doesn't look exactly the most aesthetically pleasing, but honestly, it's the price to pay for having such a cheap custom computer without using a pre-built. I mean, even pre-builts look ugly, but still, I think you get my drift. If you're in the US, I know that you have good deals locally, and I know that you have decent prices because I'm in the US and I have all of those things. So if you are building a computer for $200 to $250, I recommend two options. Either do the whole pre-built formulaic route, that works just fine, or if you want something with better upgradability, then go for a Ryzen 3 2200G computer. It's only about $100 more, but you get so much more breathing room for other things. So if you're really strapped for cash, then this build will work just fine. But if you live in the States, then there isn't much of a reason, honestly, to do this. You can get something a little bit better by going the pre-built route. And if you guys really enjoy the content, then head over to my Patreon. It's only $1 a month for a lot of exclusive access. You get to see a lot of things that I'm doing behind the scenes and all of that stuff. It really helps out the channel, so I support every little bit that you guys give to me. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.